million that he raised from some of the most extreme left-wing people in the country in order to then endorse and bankroll these individuals who are now in office with these ideas that are dangerous for Arizona.
So just to be clear for the people who are watching at home and don't know what group you're talking about or these endorsements, can you please be specific about the group and the endorsements?
Well, I think he knows. Again, it's a very radical political organization that's raised $57 million. And then, again, he's been a political operative for a decade. At the state legislature, at the governors, those running for House and those running for Senate, some of the most extreme left-wing candidates in our country running for office, bankrolling them, endorsing them. Look at the photo. He's got his arm around Omar in Minneapolis. What are you doing in Minneapolis hugging Omar?
Mr. Kelly, these endorsements.
So the organization that Senator McSally is referring to is named after my wife, Gabby Giffords. It's named Giffords. Gabby was injured, shot in the head in 2011. The issue of gun violence is personal for Gabby and me. And I'll never forget, what she went through for that year and a half. In the hospital for 6 months, a year of significant rehab. Today, she still does physical therapy and speech therapy. It's an incredible challenge. So we formed an organization to try to make communities and help communities become safer, safer from gun violence. I'm a supporter of the Second Amendment. I'm a gun owner. Our rights and traditions are so important. The Second Amendment is so important. But we can never let a bunch of kids in the classroom, get killed and think there's nothing we can do about it. Common sense things like background checks for all gun sales, red flag laws. These are common sense things that most Arizonans support. Apparently, Senator McSally does not.
Senator McSally, the president has reportedly, by way of the Wall Street Journal, the Atlantic Monthly, CNN, Fox News, all reporting that he referred to members of the military as, quote, losers and suckers. You are a military veteran. Your thoughts on this?
Well, I'm not going to comment on anonymous sources, but what I can tell you is I'm proud to have been able to serve in the military, and we're working to rebuild our military after Obama and Biden decimated our military, giving our troops everything they need in order to fight tonight. I mean, we had our units where they were not ready to go. They were decimated in a readiness crisis. We had more people dying in training accidents than they were in combat in the end years of Obama and Biden. So I'm working with President Trump to rebuild our military, to save the A-10, by the way, something I did when President Obama tried to cut it, then President Trump tried to cut it, and I just saved it again. This is critical for Tucson and Davis-Monthan, and the troops are on the ground. So I'm always going to have the military's back. But what's at stake here, should we lose the White House, the Senate, and the House, which comes through Arizona? This race will decide the Senate majority. And Chuck Schumer is so proud to have recruited Mark Kelly. He's bankrolled his campaign. He's trying to ensure he has power. And if they get power, the Green and all the other ideas careening towards socialism. So I'm going to stand every single day with our men and women in the military and fight to give them everything they need. That's what's at stake here.
Senator, the question remains, have you looked into the reports? Have you looked into the anonymous source reports? Does it concern you? It concerns a lot of people. Does it concern you?
I get up every single morning fighting for Arizona. That's what I spend my time doing. I listen to Arizonans, hear what they need, and then I deploy to Washington, D.C. to fight for them. You pundits can look into those anonymous allegations, and I'm just telling you, I'm fighting for our military. I'm fighting for our veterans, but they will cut our military again if they gain power.
Mr. Kelly, does it concern you?
Absolutely. He's the commander-in-chief of our armed forces. And to say that about deceased veterans who died on the battlefield, calling them losers and suckers. What also concerns me is what he said about Senator John McCain repeatedly on more than one occasion, especially after when he passed away. And those comments are just uncalled for. Senator McCain was a hero of mine from my earliest days in the United States Navy as a Navy pilot. He's the guy we looked up to. He's the guy that, in the unfortunate situation that you ever got shot down, he was the model. I later got to call him a friend. and got to know him, which was one of the greatest honors of my lifetime, I would say. And to hear Senator McSally not stick up for Senator John McCain when the President of the United States is attacking him repeatedly, even after he passed away. And as a veteran, I find it incredibly hard to understand that on not one occasion would Senator McSally come to Senator McCain's defense.
Did you not stick up for Senator McCain?
I absolutely have. It's been reported many times. I've publicly and privately, repeatedly talked to President Trump and asked him to stop attacking John McCain. Quite frankly, it pisses me off when he does it. It's been an honor to even work with Senator John McCain. I never would have imagined. I learned about him when I was a cadet in the military, about what he endured as a POW, and to be able to work with him to save the A-10 and support our military, and now be able to serve in his seat. And so I've repeatedly said, stop doing that. Let's let him rest in peace. But one thing about Senator McCain we knew here in Arizona, whether you agreed with him or you disagreed with him, we always knew where he stood. And this is another example, Mark, where you're trying to invoke him, but you can't even take simple positions on whether you're going to support your recruiter and investor, Chuck Schumer, whether you're going to abolish the filibuster, whether you support packing the Supreme Court, where you say one thing, a bunch of platitudes, but you can't even tell Arizonans where you stand.
Thank you, Senator.
Let's move on to climate change, and a reminder, you'll each have 90 seconds to respond to this question. This year, Arizona experienced the driest, hottest summer on record. The state's water supply, as you both know, is in a precarious position. A recent poll shows that 70% of Arizonans want climate change to be a national priority. How do we affordably transition to renewable solutions? Senator McSally, we'll start with you.
Thanks. The climate is changing, and there is a human element to it. The question is, what do we do? What we should not do is the green bad deal. Again, this has been proposed. The author of the Green Deal is someone that my opponent endorsed and bankrolled. And he said, let's ban fossil fuels and have a carbon tax himself. What the green bag deal would do is it would cost $93 trillion. That's $65,000 for every household in America every year. This heavy-handed approach would be devastating to our economy. And you can just look next door in California. They're trying these heavy-handed mandates that are not working. They have blackouts right now because it's not based on the science. I've been leading on efforts to ensure we have an all-of-the-above energy strategy. We're finally in a place where we're energy independent. Thank God. I've deployed to the Middle East 5 times and once to Afghanistan. So we're now a net exporter of energy. We need additional clean energy for sure, but that includes nuclear, the Palo Verde nuclear plant. I've been leading on efforts so we can have more research in energy storage, because right now the sun goes down at night and we don't have good grid level storage. And for any of that storage, even if it's for a few hours, we're relying on China for those minerals and that processing. So we've got to bring those jobs home. So look, you said you would ban fossil fuels. You're for a carbon tax. How is that any different than the Green Bad Deal? And you've supported the author of the Green New Deal, which would be those are what the left is offering.
Mr. Kelly, you have 90
Well, I don't
seconds.
know where Senator McSally gets her information from, but since the Green New Deal was authored, I've been against it. There's a lot of stuff in there that has nothing to do with climate. I made that very clear. I don't know why she says I'm against fossil fuels. I'm a pilot of an airplane. So is Senator McSally. You're not going to do that without kind of our planet for the first time from low Earth orbit, seeing this big round ball and realizing that we are really all in this together. And it becomes very clear very quickly that we have no place else to go. There is no planet B. We're not moving somewhere else someday. We have to do a better job taking care of this planet. We have gone from about 280 parts per million of CO2 in the atmosphere pre-industrial revolution to about 420 today. You talk about flattening a curve, that's a curve we need to flatten. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to move to more renewable energy. With Senator McSally, you just got to follow the money. Senator McSally takes hundreds of thousands of dollars of corporate PAC checks from oil and gas companies and gives them a $20 billion tax cut, essentially. And that's why we're having a difficult time solving this problem. Hey, this could be good for Arizona. If we extend the investment tax credit by 5 years, 30% on solar energy, this could be good jobs. We could create the technology here. We can manufacture it here. We can deploy it here. Could be great for our state, but we can't wait around and do nothing anymore. We need independent leadership in Washington, D.C. that's going to put Arizona first, not put a on the other side of the country first.
Do you support mandates with deadlines to get this done? One example, requiring zero-emission vehicles by a certain date.
Hey, I think when this administration rolled back emission standards and also clean air regulations and clean water regulations, that now we're going to have more polluted air and more polluted water. Senator McSally supported all that. That was a mistake.
Senator, do you support mandates with deadlines?
I'm an outdoors woman and I want clean air and clean water, but what I don't want is to hurt Arizonans, the working poor, rural Arizonans, those in tribal communities who can't afford these mandates that are coming from Washington, D.C. that are not based on science. We saw that under Obama, but now they're going too far. And look, this is another example where he's saying he didn't say let's ban fossil fuels, but in a TV interview last year, he said those very words. I think we should ban fossil fuels and have a carbon tax. This is a regressive tax that would hurt the working poor and hurt rural communities the most. So I'm on investing in energy research so we can have energy storage. We can find cleaner ways for our energy to move forward, but do it based on the science and innovation. We're going to innovate our way out of this, and America will lead the way. And in the meantime, our emissions are going down. Our CO2 emissions are going down. China, the big polluter, who he's doing business with, their emissions are going up. So let's innovate our way out, not ban fossil fuels like Counterfeit Kelly wants to do.
I don't know where Senator McSally gets her information from, but there is to ban fossil fuels. So at this point, she's just making stuff up.
Mr. Kelly, different sort of climate question. It's the climate in our cities, frankly. In the wake of the killing of George Floyd in May, we saw rallies, we saw protests. President Trump, in some cases, referred to them as violent. We've seen, is there a discussion of who's on the right, who's on the left, who's causing these problems? The fact is, if you were to be in the Senate, that could be a federal responsibility in terms of funding for our cities, funding for police forces. Where do you stand on that in terms of helping our cities deal with some of this, whether it's social injustice, racial injustice, or just police relations with communities?
Well, the promise of our country shouldn't be what kind of education you get, what kind of health care you can get, success in life, or how an interaction with the police is going to turn out. And we need some reform in policing. Both of my parents were cops. So I understand it is incredibly difficult jobs. Police officers need the resources to do a very hard job. I am 100% behind that. And it's a difficult job. I recognize that. But there are necessary reforms needed in policing. But the protests that we have seen across the country, there is no place for that. I fought to defend our Constitution, our First Amendment, the right for people to peacefully protest. But what we've seen over the last months is beyond that, and it needs to end. And cities and communities need the resources to deal with this in an effective way. And then we've got to, there's some common sense things we can do to keep mostly African American men safer in these encounters when they're encountering police. More accountability, independent investigations and oversight, body cameras, consent decrees, which is the Department of Justice overseeing police departments when they need to make some changes. This issue of qualified immunity. These are common sense things that can be done to reform policing. I think it's necessary, but the violence we see in our communities has to end. The federal government should be helping with some resources where it makes sense and where governors need that.
Senator, what reforms would you like to see on that?
Well, we got to rout out racism in any form, whether it's in any institution or in anyone's hearts. And there's only one candidate up here who has had to apologize for a racist slur, and it's not me. And if you watch the murder of George Floyd, it was despicable, not just the officer who killed him, but those who stood by and allowed it to happen. And so we moved forward some common sense police reform. Tim Scott's bill, it was about 70% of what the Democrats were asking for. It was good reforms in order to address some of these issues and give more funding to police. I back the blue. I've gotten the endorsement of the Arizona Police Association. What's happening right now in our cities, the violence is despicable, and you see many on the left who are just standing by and doing nothing. Again, I'd ask my opponent whether he wants to take back the endorsement that he gave to Ilhan Omar, who in Minneapolis was leading the effort to defund the police. He's standing there with his arm around him. This is dangerous. the 12,000 officers in the Arizona Police Association, they know that I've got their back, and that's why they're backing me. And I think I just heard, I'd like to know whether he would vote for Tim Scott's bill, but I think I just heard that he wants to support criminals being able to sue police officers just for doing their jobs. Now, I know what it's like to make life and death decisions in combat in the A-10 Warthog, and our men and women go out every single day and kiss their families goodbye. They need to have our backs and not have criminals to be able to sue them. Did you say you supported that? Nancy Pelosi bill, who you also endorsed and supported,
Well,
to
on the Tim
allow
Scott-
criminals to sue police officers?
On the Tim Scott bill that you referenced, the Leadership Conference on Human and Civil Rights says it's inadequate, and other organizations. It didn't include qualified immunity. It didn't include consent decrees. It didn't include body cameras or use of force laws. I think that when police officers are found that there was serious wrongdoing, there should be an accountability aspect to that. As a son of two police officers, my mom and my dad, I realize this is a tough job, but there should be accountability, there should be independent investigation, and there should be oversight.
Senator McSally, are our cities safe? Some would say President Trump has sort of fomented some of the racial problems by making it seem as if there's a divide between white and black.
The violence and the anarchy that's happening in cities across the country is devastating to local communities. The violence is going up. The attacks on police officers. Listen to what Counterfeit Kelly just said. He said he would support allowing criminals to sue police officers simply for doing their job. That's why they're backing me, those police officers. They know with the attacks that are going up on them right now, vilifying them, that are led by people like Ilhan Omar, his wingman. That's what's happening right now. We need more funding the police. We need to back the blue. And those local mayors, they need to provide public safety. Look, what these guys want, if they're given power, which we need to stop from happening, is to vilify the police, defund the police, and then come after your Second Amendment rights so you can't defend yourself and your families. I back the blue, and we need to make sure they have everything they need to keep us safe.
Do you support criminals filing suit against police officers just for doing their jobs?
Not criminals filing suits against police officers, but
That's
when there's
qualified.
wrongdoing, and clearly there was an investigation, and part of being accountable and part of being respectful in the community, I think there should be some level of accountability for cops when there was clear wrongdoing.
Look, that's a big deal. These men and women in blue, they could lose their retirements, they could lose their homes, their college funds simply for doing their jobs. Getting sued by criminals, getting rid of this qualified immunity, that's what it means, you guys. I back the blue.
All right, let's move on. Senator McSally, after mass shootings last year, you said that you would be open to considering red flag gun laws to try to keep weapons away from dangerous people. Is that the case, and what specifically would that look like today?
Yeah. What I said was we need to do everything we can in order to stop these tragedies from happening. And I've been leading on this in the House and the Senate. We've got a background check system that often isn't working as it is. We've had shootings happen where somebody should have been in the system, but instead they passed a background check. So I've passed the Fix NICS Act to make sure we strengthen that background check system. And we need more mental health support. I've led on the effort to get more mental health funding out there and more support to schools for them to have the security they need so parents can drop their kids off at schools and ensure that they are safe. But right now, more than ever, I'm your Second Amendment senator. I think I've shot the biggest gun of anybody in Congress. But make no mistake, the agenda of the people he has supported, to include people like Beto O'Rourke and others, they're coming after our Second Amendment rights right now. Law-abiding citizens deserve to keep their ability to defend their family and defend their own lives. And that's what's at stake right now. We're one judge away for us losing our Second Amendment rights, and their legislative agenda will be coming after them as well. So we can do things like I've led on in order to protect communities, but we must protect the Second Amendment.
So again, last year you said you were open to considering red flag gun laws. Is that still the case?
You're misstating the conversations we were having with the White House. We need to make sure that if somebody has been adjudicated to be mentally ill by a judge, that they're in the NICS system. That's what the law is right now. And many states don't put that information in the NICS system, so people end up passing a background check anyway. We've got to have due process for people. We've got to ensure that their constitutional rights are never taken away unless they have gone through that due process. And the laws are on the books. If you're a felon or a domestic abuser or you've been adjudicated to be mentally ill, I support the Second Amendment. We need to do everything we can, obviously, to keep communities safe. But you all, the people he's supporting, they want to down the police, your Second Amendment rights so you can't defend your family. I'm against that.
Just to be clear, I did not misspeak. We've had multiple conversations at the Arizona Republic with your office, so I just want to be clear on that. We've written quite a bit about that. Mr. Kelly, a lot of Americans first heard of you as the voice of gun control in this nation. Here you are running for the U.S. Senate, and you haven't raised the issue of gun safety or gun control much over the last year and a half that you've been in this race. Why not?
Well, the issue is incredibly important to me, and it's incredibly important to Arizonans. And I have to first say, Senator McSally, I have a lot of respect for that 30-millimeter cannon in the 810 that Senator McSally got to shoot. It's a great weapon system. I'm a supporter of the Second Amendment. I have been my whole life. I remember when my dad gave me my first firearm. I was in Beeville, Texas, going through flight school, just got my wings, and he bought me a 9-millimeter Glock. And that's the gun that I flew in combat with in the first Gulf War. It's one of my most prized possessions. And I have a lot of firearms. But I don't think that we should ever get to the point where we think a bunch of kids getting killed in a classroom is just normal. Some stronger gun laws is not inconsistent with our Second Amendment rights. We can respect our rights and traditions on gun ownership under the Second Amendment, and we can have stronger communities. That includes things like, Yvonne, like you mentioned, red flag laws, background checks for all gun sales. Senator McSally in the past has said background checks are unconstitutional. Well, most guns are sold with a background check right now, but there's these giant loopholes that you can drive a truck through. And here in Arizona, a majority of Arizonans support background checks for all gun sales and red flag laws and a couple other things. These are common sense things that'll keep communities safe, and at the same time, we can respect our Second Amendment rights.
Why haven't you talked more about your viewpoints on this on the campaign trail?
Well, I generally talk about what folks ask me about. And they often ask about their health care, prescription drugs, the price of prescription medication. I met this mom, recently named Ophelia, and she was having to make these horrible decisions about whether she fills her son's prescription, her prescription, or buys groceries for the week. These are horrible choices that Arizonans currently have to make. These are the issues that folks care about. Not getting COVID-19 relief. We have so many Arizonans, so many members of our community that are really struggling. Food banks are maxed out. Folks are having to make these horrible choices, and the United States Senate went home. That's not leadership for Arizona.
Real quickly, are you against background checks for all gun sales?
Well, I'm for the Second Amendment, and here's just another example where my opponent says, I've got a gun, and I'm not talking. The reason he's not talking about it is because Arizonans care about their Second Amendment constitutional rights. And should he get elected, this will switch the Senate majority, and they will be able to ram through the most radical anti-Second Amendment agenda. And he's been leading the charge over the last 10 years, supporting the most extreme left-wing elements of his party, the Frankenstein he created.
Senator,
who are now leading the effort to take away our Second Amendment rights. I'm not going to let that happen.
We only have 30 seconds left.
Yeah.
Are you against background checks for all gun sales?
I have been strengthening the background check system that we have. Oftentimes, somebody is a prohibited possessor and they're not in the background check system. So I've been leading to strengthen the system that we have while ensuring that Arizonans' Second Amendment rights are protected.
All right. That's it. We have to stop it right there. Thank you, candidates, so much. It's now time for our closing statements, and we begin with Mark Kelly.
Well, thank you, everybody, for spending the time to listen to Senator McSally and to me tonight. This is a critical moment for our country and our state. And partisan politics has made this crisis worse. And partisan politics and partisan politicians are not going to get us out of it. We need independent leadership focused on solving the problems we face, like beating this virus and rebuilding our economy and lowering the cost of health care and prescription drugs. I can bring my experience as a combat pilot, an engineer, as an astronaut, to the United States Senate to help solve some of these serious problems. But I can't do that without your vote. Whether you're an independent, a Republican, or a Democrat, I ask for your vote. These are serious challenges that we face. By working together as a team, we can solve these serious problems. Thank you, everybody.
And for the final closing statement, we turn now to Senator Martha McSally.
Arizonans, you'll start voting tomorrow, and this is such a consequential decision. It will decide the Senate majority. It will decide the direction of our country. And you do have a choice here. You have somebody who's been a fighter for you and will continue to be a fighter for Arizona, or a counterfeit who will enable the radical left and their agenda to be forced on us. There's a lot at stake here. I'm humbly asking for your vote. And you know what, Mark? This has been a great discussion. Thanks for everybody for the conversation here. I think Arizonans really prefer this probably to 30-second slick TV ads. So why don't we do this 3 more times in the next few weeks? We could go to Green Valley, we could go to Yuma, we could go to Prescott. I'm sure the local media would support, holding these debates. Will you agree right now? Let's do 3 more of these around Arizona, because Arizonans really what's at
Well, I'm
stake.
really looking forward to next week, I think, on Univision.
Will you agree to 3 more?
That'll be an interesting conversation. Thank you.
All right. Well, that kind of proves my point, Arizona.
All right. That is it for this election 2020 debate for the U.S. Senate, brought to you by Arizona Citizens Clean Elections Commission, Arizona PBS, the Arizona Republic, KJAZ Radio, and Arizona Public Media.
And if you'd like to hear more about the debate, including analysis from the 4 of us, please join us immediately after on one of our live streams. The post-debate analysis show will be carried on ArizonaCentral.com, azpm.org, kjzz.org, and azpbs.org.
And we hope you join us for future debates, including the debate for Congressional District 1 on Thursday night and the debate for the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office on Friday.
And thanks to the candidates for their participation, and thank you for joining us as well. You have a great evening.